Hey, I'm CodingSpot. I'm 12 years old and this is my game, where you explore the world, defeat bosses, and upgrade your weapon. And we need to create a boss. Since the last devlog, I've really wanted to make a boss fight for my game. But before we get into how I made it, I want to share the progress I've made to my game so far, because it's been over a month since the last devlog. One of the things I've been working on is the art. The first thing I did was take the grass and this cliff and change them a bit. I turned the dirt into stone and I changed the color of the grass. I also got rid of the free environment assets and made my own trees, crates, and rocks. I have 3 different versions of the environment art, but I don't think I want to keep all of them. I'll get rid of some later. Moving on from the art, I've also slightly improved the enemy AI and combat. Before this, enemies just followed you around forever until they could get close enough to hit you. But now, the enemies have different states. First, the enemy wanders around, and when a player gets close, it starts to follow the player to attack it. Once it gets close enough, it goes in for the attack, and tries to get the hit. It's pretty similar. If the player goes far away again, then the enemy won't see the player as a threat anymore, so it goes back to wandering. I've also slightly improved the combat by adding a knockback and hit effect to the enemies. Before this, there was no indication that you hit the enemy, and now there is. I also added houses to the game. I want to make it so that there's this main town where you can trade and get valuable information, or go on side quests to get stuff that I haven't thought about yet. These houses have a pretty nice interior, and I've also placed some NPCs in there. Now this probably goes in the art category, but I've also added Y sorting to the game finally. Even though a 2D game is 2D, we still have to consider depth. Let's say I walk behind this tree. The player is now behind the tree like it should be, but when I go in front, the player is still behind the tree. To fix this, in Godot, you can use Y sorting on the player and tile map. Now it works as it should. The player is behind the tree when I go behind, and is in front when I go in front. After all of that, I finally decided to start working on a boss. Now I'm not really good with art, so I made the boss just the enemy, but bigger. This is just a placeholder for now. I'm going to change it when I learn how to make better art. Now after working so hard on the art, I started writing the code to make this actually work. Now the AI is pretty much the same thing as the enemies, just a little different. But the attacks are very different. The enemies use a close ranged attack, a bite attack, mainly because that's what the sprite came with. The boss looks like it's biting, but it's actually shooting these little orb things at the player, and they do a lot of damage. Another attack is just a one-time attack to make the fight harder. The boss, when it's on half health, spawns a random amount of little minions between 0 and 5. This makes the fight harder because you have to make sure the enemies don't bite you and also dodge the boss's bullets at the same time. After creating the boss, I added a separate area where you can actually fight the boss, and before the fight starts, there's this cutscene that I added to make it feel more intense. Once you defeat the boss, the shard drops on the ground. I can't tell you what this shard is for yet because I haven't coded it, but it does have something to do with the main mechanic and story for the game. That's it for this devlog. I'll see you in the next one.